In the meantime, what I want to do is bring in our guest this hour to discuss this case a little bit. Let me bring in trial attorney Sarah Klein, joining us live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Sarah, always great to have you on the program. Thank you for making time with us this Monday. Share
Happy
with us, please.
Monday.
Yeah, same to you. So share with us, please, your take just on the few facts we know about the Michelle Boat case, what you see as difficulties or facts that are very favorable to both sides, please.
Yeah, I think the facts are pretty strong in terms of the state's case here that this is a woman who was unhinged, for lack of a better term. She, had some prior issues with the law and run-ins and harassment and all of that. We've got this footage and this witness, and I think this is going to be a case similar to what we just saw with Addie, where it's not going to bode well in her favor.
No, I'm with you there. From what we can see, just on the face of it, it looks to be a pretty strong state case, and
Hmm.
also has that domestic violence component to it as well. And that's something for me. It's a particular area of interest. I do some work in my off time on that in promoting domestic violence awareness, and I know that you are extremely sensitive to victims and victims' rights. We both licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. So, can we speak a little bit about that? You know, when you have a DV situation, it's not always what people think. People often think it's going to be about anger management, where really it's about power and control. And so share with us your thoughts when you learned that about the alleged violation of the protection order with respect to the husband, please, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. Domestic violence is something that is serious in a way that these people who have these offenses need to be watched more carefully. And I think we're going to talk a bit about that more later in the show with another case. That it's about the power, it's about the mind control, it's about the grooming. And often, unfortunately, they end in severe acts of violence, which is what we're seeing here. And so, this might be just yet another statistic where we have a couple engaged in a DV situation that ends in horrific violence.
Yeah, well said, Sarah. Let's take a look together now, if we can. We have some video from a pre-trial hearing in this case, which may shed a little bit of light on what is going to come during the trial phase. Okay, let me bring back in my guest, Sarah Klein. Okay, Sarah, I'm watching this. We see a lot of matters being hashed out ahead of time, which will certainly be important during the trial. And as I was just sitting there watching, thinking about the facts, thinking about that this is a stabbing case. It's a very violent act that's being alleged to have been carried out by the defendant, Ms. Boat here. Do you have any thoughts? I know it's early in the game, but just watching it and listening, any thoughts on whether or not she may take the stand and try to testify on this one? Share with us what may be the pros and cons of something like that, please.
Yeah, like with what we saw with Addie, there's probably not a lot that she's going to be able to say that is going to, change the jury's mind and find her sympathetic, right? These facts are pretty strong on the state side, so it might be in her interest not to take the stand.
Right.
On how she's right, and depending on what she has to say, we could see. But I don't think they're going to find her very sympathetic whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, these facts are awful, and something that we know that juries can never know is there may be lots of negotiations going on. The state may have offered something. They may have offered a plea agreement. She may be unwilling to take a plea agreement. We know she's cloaked in the presumption of innocence, going into trial as heinous as these facts are. And no matter how strong of a motive the state may have or documentations to show this pattern of violence, we know she's cloaked in the presumption of innocence, doesn't have to present anything. But I always wonder how these cases get to the point of trial, just looking at the facts, reading the affidavit, wondering how it gets to this point. And like we saw with the Addie case, that was something I think we may even have discussed it, Sarah, about, my thought was that I bet they probably offered him something that he just wasn't willing to take and thought I might as well roll the dice, head to trial. Thoughts on that with this case?
That's exactly what it is. It is a roll of the dice. It's sort of, maybe a last ditch effort to put all those, dreams of not being convicted into one basket, right? And so oftentimes when they know it's this bad, when the defendant knows it's this bad, it's better for them to go to trial and roll that dice in the hopes that potentially a jury will find them innocent. But again, this is a tough one. Just like Addie, very, very compelling, as you said, violent crime that juries are not going to want to hear about or think about. It's going to be very difficult for them to stomach the details of this. And so, I think she is just rolling the dice, and we'll see what happens.
Definitely. Yes, stabbing's much more intimate type of violence there. That's something that always kind of struck me when handling those kind of cases when I was a prosecutor. Sarah, great to talk with you about this one. We're going to keep watching it. Of course, get ready for the jury selection. That's going to be beginning.